Chapter 3 Black Love Amplified. In exploring the profound narrative of Black love, one of the most iconic stories that speaks to the dynamics of attraction, respect, and intellectual capability is the encounter between the Queen of Sheba and King Solomon. When I first encountered this narrative, I was blown away about the irony of a man so engrossed about wisdom as the embodiment of a female. King Solomon spoke of wisdom as a treasure worth desiring and acquiring, even at the peril of gold or silver. King Solomon's love of wisdom was amplified by the Queen of Sheba, for which I learned an important lesson about the science of mating. As the wisest man in the world, King Solomon was considered a high-value man in his days. He was not seeking love, he was seeking the wisdom to build a kingdom fit for royalty. He was in his element. He was busy with his purpose. The Queen of Sheba, a legendary figure of power and influence from the land of Sheba, heard whispers of King Solomon's remarkable wisdom, wealth, and glory of his empire. Biblical narratives suggest that tales of Solomon's reign reached her through merchants, travelers, and dignitaries who marveled at the scale of his riches, his kingdom's opulence, and the just, wise governance he displayed. At the time of Solomon's golden era of prosperity, here is what else was taking place around the world. Given the Queen of Sheba, who could have traveled to any man's nationality or foreign destiny, but chose King Solomon, it's important to see that global trade was major and consisting of many players and kingdoms. During King Solomon's reign, Egypt was in its 21st and 22nd dynasties under the pharaoh Solomon, who gave his daughter to King Solomon in marriage as a political alliance. In addition, Mesopotamia, slowly emerging as a powerful force, Phoenicia, Tyre, Sidon, and Byblos were thriving as maritime powers, with King Hiram of Tyre providing skilled labor, cedar, and materials for the construction of King Solomon's temple in Jerusalem. Also, Anatolia, modern-day Turkey, Persia, Iran, India, the Vedic period, China, the Shang dynasty, Greece, the Greek Dark Ages, and Africa, Nubia, was the Kushite culture that began developing and maintaining close ties with Egypt through trade, warfare, and cultural exchange. The entire issue with grasping what is going on in the world has a lot to do with the science of mating. As a black man, the pressure to become successful before his time, unless he has been groomed since a child to take over the throne of his father, takes away from the intellectual, emotional, and spiritual development needed for a black man to successfully navigate the reins of a successful marriage with regards to his black queen. King Solomon took over the throne from his father, King David, at the age of 20. And it was not until he was about 30 to 35 that he came into contact with the Queen of Sheba. The 10 to 15 year developmental period was pivotal for King Solomon in attracting Queen of Sheba into his orbit. His reputation and regional boundaries was key in drawing Sheba's curiosity. Intrigued, the Queen of Sheba resolved to see if Solomon's fame was indeed well deserved. She prepared an impressive caravan filled with precious spices, gold, and exotic treasures as gifts, symbolizing both her respect and the stature of her own kingdom. Queen of Sheba was known to be highly intelligent, sophisticated, and wealthy herself. So her journey was not solely about marveling at Solomon's riches, but also a test of his wisdom. A highly valuable woman. Many talks in the manosphere space challenges the stereotypes and norms of what it means to be a high-value man. But in the case of the Queen of Sheba, she was a high-value woman who could pay for her own travel expenses, run an entire kingdom in her own right, and require nothing more in return but a man that is purpose-driven, emotionally intelligent, and who carries an aura of confidence about himself. The Queen of Sheba was never pressured to succumb to the norms of her day by sleeping with multiple men and acquiescing to the pressures of womanhood. When she met King Solomon, she was a virgin of noble rank and status. Upon meeting King Solomon, she challenges him with profound questions, riddles, and philosophical problems that only a true, wise, and discerning ruler could answer. Sheba's journey to King Solomon's kingdom, crossing arid deserts and vast terrains, marked a unique episode of diplomatic and intellectual engagement between two powerful rulers. When they finally met, she presented the opportunity for him to ask questions, evaluating the depth of his intellect and the legitimacy of his fame. Solomon's responses display not only his knowledge, but his thoughtful understanding of human nature and divine principles, deeply impressed her. In this encounter, the Queen of Sheba confirmed for herself that Solomon's wisdom and wealth were indeed real, solidifying their connection and forging a narrative of mutual respect and admiration that has echoed throughout the centuries. This historical encounter is not just about love, it is about the science of connection, where deep intellect, spirituality, and strength intersect. Queen of Sheba, a woman of regal power, wealth, and unmatched beauty, was both admired and revered, yet she would not yield her heart or body easily. To her, intimacy was sacred, requiring a level of intellectual and spiritual capability that transcended mere attraction. She understood that love, to be amplified, required more than desire. It needed alignment of minds and an appreciation for growth. Only when he met her standards, satisfying her test of wisdom and humility, did she consider the possibility of unity. This encounter invites us to reflect on Black love as more than romantic or physical. It is the art of elevating each other's potential, of holding space for intellectual and emotional maturity, and of demanding standards that cultivate respect. It's about recognizing that if we can see a path towards our ideal partners, we would never deviate even for one moment in seeking love in any other race but our own. Love is love at the end of the day, and we will choose who we will mate with given our understanding of the science of mating, the environment we grew up in, women who have never rejected the Black man, and our affinity for friendship and cohabitation. In the end, we need to trust the process when it comes to the desires of our heart. Desires of our heart. Understanding the true nature of human desires is a complex and multifaceted topic that encompasses various psychological, emotional, and biological factors. When God stated that he would grant us the desires of our hearts in Psalms 37:4, this inherent declaration was in response to us finding a place in our life where we could communicate with the Father about our struggles, hopes, wishes, and longings. Personally, I always desired fun moments of laughter in ways that I could help others. I enjoyed giving and being a support to others since my youthful days. As I became of age and exposed myself to the indulgence of the world, my desires changed. Drugs, women, independence, and basketball became the main staple of my diet. I enjoyed the freedom of sleeping with multiple women and using my wit to make money on the side. The pleasures of the world seemed like a thank you note from the Father who I thought was granting me the desires of my heart. Pleasure was the desire that took over my life and clouded my perception of reality. I was no different from any other young Black brother in the world. I wanted the baddies, the freedom to make money, and the influence to inspire others to do the same. In these brief exchanges of liberty for the dowry of my flesh, I learned that desires could encompass a wide range of things, such as material desires, money, houses, cars, other material good, emotional desires, seeking love, companionship, happiness, or a sense of belonging, personal desires, the focus on self-improvement, learning new skills, achieving personal goals, or pursuing one's passions. Achievement desires, striving for success, recognition, and accomplishments in an area such as a career, academics, or sports. And sensual desires, physical pleasure, satisfaction, food, intimacy, or other sensory experiences. What I now realize is that I was praying for the sensual desires of my heart because my prayers were inarticulate. I was not able to create a balance in my world that could justify the feelings of isolation and loneliness that surrounded my inner world, despite the meanderings that were going on around me. As a black man in America, I love the idea of sex, but lost sight of the war that was going on against black men as it pertains to Caucasian genocide. Why wasn't I taught or learned in the art of sexual immorality as a tool for white oppression? As the saying goes, if you know better, you do better. And now that I'm able to grasp the landscape of black male sexuality, I can begin to shed light on the hidden truths of a black man's desires. The hidden truth is that we as black men could care less about having multiple sexual partners, marrying white women, or fighting with our own black women. The formation of black male sexuality has been shaped by a history of systemic oppression since black men first arrived in America. The exploitation of enslaved black women by white men, coupled with the forced use of black men as breeders on plantations, has ingrained a legacy of pressure on black men to perform sexually, build families under restricted or non-existent access to education, and provide for loved ones without economic resources. Black male genocide has left lasting imprints on the expectations and burdens placed upon black men across generations. Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, in her seminal work, The ISIS Papers, states that the system has figured out something about the game of life, which is self-preservation, and that black men are still subject to this system in this very moment. One of the reasons I'm writing about the hidden truth is to explain how I failed to understand my role as a black man in America, and how this lack of understanding has caused division and destruction in my family, community, and relationships due to my lack of understanding with regards to the game that is being played. After years of inner turmoil and thousands of sleepless nights, I needed a perspective that would grant me a deeper analysis of my generation and what it means to be married, in love, and dating. Because black male-female relationships are so diverse and full of contradictions, it's almost impossible to categorize black relationships in the context of black love. In order to understand what is really going on in the world of black relationships, I needed to find perspective. I took a deep dive into the landscape of social media, the manosphere, black male and female relationships, the millennial versus Gen Z point of view, deadbeat father narratives, child support, passport bro scenarios, and a host of other conversations that aided in the Kevin Samuels dialogue. What I discovered is that black men and women are becoming more fluid in their thinking patterns when it comes to love, dating, and marriage. The landscape of black love is shifting from the high value man narratives, interracial dating, body counts, passport bro excursions, wedlock babies, flings, one night stands, polygamy, and child support narratives to the globalization of black love. The black man, as diverse as he is when it comes to dating, Chinese, Latinos, Hispanics, Indian, Puerto Ricans, Brazilians, etc., will begin to see the nature and character of the black woman outside of North America demographics. I'm not talking about black men running from black women because they had a few bad run-ins, but understanding that the picture the world has painted of the black man has locked his intelligence outside of nations that hold beautiful women in their borders. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, the black female population in the United States was 21.7 million in 2021 and about 600 million globally. Painting a picture. The hidden truth is that in the next 2 to 3 generations, as it pertains to the black community, black men will need a bigger pool of women to choose from that understands the value of a black man outside of Americanized stereotypes and logistical challenges. I'm simply stating that black men will need an education in bridging the gap between taking the road less traveled and staying rolled into the equity of cultural familiarity. Black men and women share similar cultural backgrounds, values, and life experiences, which can foster deeper connections, but the layers of communication and trauma that need to be unpacked is left to chance. Because black men love raw sex, even at the peril of an sexually transmitted infection, STI, they forego the educational process surrounding what it means to be in a healthy relationship. Let me be honest for a moment about the narrative of seeing a healthy black relationship, marriage, and two-parent home constructs. The reality is, every generation has its own demons to fight. I am one for learning from our elders, but it's important to realize that young black men and women, if even taught to do better, will ultimately experience and learn for themselves about the ways of the world. Given all the wisdom I have poured into my 19-year-old son, he will still make mistakes and be forced to learn about life from his own personalized experiences as he continues to progress on his journey. He will be influenced by social media, his friends, families, and the latest trends that are taking place in the world, but those are mere distractions concerning the development of his brain and hardwiring. As a black man in his early 40s, 43 to be exact, I have transgressed the hardships of my midlife crisis and have decided to explain black love from my own perspective and opinion. The hidden truth is my story. It's my testimony of how God saved me from my life of sin and placed my feet on a new solid foundation from which to heal, live, love, move, think, give, write, and nurture. The hidden truth is a compendium of personal revelations, insights, and historical narratives that are helping me to paint a picture for future generations to come about the management of our sensual desires and what it means to play the game. It's a 30-year process that, if done wrong, can leave black families and communities destroyed due to the lack of undisciplined black men who see life as a playground of the gods but have never studied or learned how to play the game. If you take a look at the desires, material, emotional, personal, self-growth, self-actualization, achievement, and sensuality of a black man, his sensual desires should always come last, not first. I'm not saying that a black man should not seek to find the love of a best friend, wife, or a confidant, but to keep the lower nature of his existence in check, as to not allow the pleasures of this world to destroy our sensibilities and self-worth. In the case of Black Love Amplified, we're dealing with the sensual desires of a black man. Our sensual desires were damaged by slavery and its attempts to buck break and breed black men for the monetization of free black labor. Years have passed since the beginning of slavery, but that spirit still exists amongst black men. Poverty, pain, abuse, and trauma make a black man want to desire things that provide pleasure. Pleasure it's not just derived from our sexual experiences, but also from family, food, accomplishments, obtaining our goals, and progressing in life. And yet, it's when we are denied those things that we hold dear to our heart that we begin to desire a way to obtain those things. Desires can be driven by a combination of innate instincts, first-hand experiences, cultural influences, and social conditioning. Let us explore key aspects to the desires, including emotional intimacy, vulnerability, and the connection between desires and sexual appetite. Emotional intimacy plays a significant role in our desires and overall well-being. It refers to the deep emotional connection and closeness we experience with another person. When that is cut off, we are forced to relearn how to live without the comforts of our past emotional connections. If you have ever been through a breakup or divorce, never rush into a new situation ever. To begin with, you probably needed counseling, healing, and guidance from a past situation before you got into the one you're currently in or leaving. Take all the time you need when transitioning from breakups. Stop being afraid to be alone. Sit with your thoughts and emotions for a few moments, align your priorities, and begin afresh only after you are secure in who you are and the foundation you are building for yourself. Remember, there is a painful bridge that we must cross until we can resettle into our new framework of love. What begins to happen in this transitory moment is that you get forced to love yourself and the Creator in a much more nuanced way. Physical intimacy is gone, and now spiritual intimacy is strengthened. Now you can begin to work on your emotional intimacy. Emotional intimacy involves trust, openness, and vulnerability, as it requires revealing our true selves, including our fears, dreams, and desires to another individual. Oftentimes, this comes out in therapy sessions or with a close friend that you can trust with your vulnerabilities. This level of intimacy often contributes to a sense of emotional fulfillment and enhances the quality of your relationships. The work that is necessary when you are in between one season and the next is critical for building your inner reserves and fortitude. Yes, you are vulnerable, but you never show others you can't trust those vulnerabilities. Remember, vulnerability is closely linked to emotional intimacy and desires. It involves being open, honest, and transparent about our needs, wants, and emotions. Being vulnerable means taking emotional risk by expressing our desires and allowing ourselves to be seen and understood by others. Vulnerability can be challenging as it requires courage and the willingness to face potential rejection or judgment. However, it is through vulnerability that we can foster deep connections and create spaces for our desires to be acknowledged and reciprocated. If you have found yourself at the bottom of your desires, the only way to go is up. Desires come in many different forms, shapes, and sizes. Desires are not solely limited to sexual appetite, although sexuality is undoubtedly a fundamental aspect of human nature. Our sexual desires are influenced by a combination of biological, psychological, and sociological cultural factors. Biological factors include hormones, genetics, and neurological processes that contribute to our sexual orientation, preferences, and drives. Psychological factors encompass our personal experiences, fantasies, and emotional connections. Sociocultural factors, such as cultural norms, values, and societal expectations, can shape and influence our desires as well. It's essential to recognize that desires are diverse and can vary greatly among individuals. Each person has unique desires shaped by their personal history, values, and individual circumstances. It is crucial to approach desires with respect, consent, and open communication in the context of relationships. It's not necessary to degrade yourself or live in shame because of those desires that encompass your heart. It's okay to love yourself for having desires that were given by God. God is too big for us to comprehend the magnitude of his ways. Understanding and empathizing with our own desires and those of our partners can contribute to creating fulfilling and satisfying connections. If you are not with a partner at the moment, begin to prepare. Man was not meant to be alone, so it's unnatural for people to remain single and live in solitude forever. Exploring the true nature of our desires requires introspection, self-awareness, and the understanding of our emotional needs. It involves recognizing and honoring our own desires while respecting the boundaries and desires of others. We will ultimately get what we want when we learn the lessons of self-love and independence. As Black men, you came to planet Earth to heal others and be taught about trust, letting go, and embracing change in a chaotic world. It's okay to embrace the dark side of your life. It's a vulnerable place because it too can seem taboo and in conflict with your moral compass. You will fail in your pursuit, but it will allow you to better understand and express your desires. Ultimately, the true nature of our desires is a deeply personal and nuanced aspect of our human experience. It is influenced by a combination of factors, including emotional intimacy, vulnerability, and the complex interplay between our hearts, minds, and bodies. By embracing self-discovery and fostering open and honest communication, we can cultivate healthy relationships and a better understanding for our desires. Black Love Amplified. In Black Love Amplified, I present a short narrative of how to think about the desires of the Black man. The Black man is still a work in progress when it comes to understanding his own emotional patterns and how to appropriate healthy relationship dynamics. Not every Black man desires to be married, monogamous, or live within the cultural norms of Black love or any type of relationship for that matter. Why is this important? Because without the proper understanding of self in relation to people that come into our lives, the only thing that can extend from such an occurrence is abuse in the most benign way. As the old saying goes, hurt people, and yet we are in school seeking to learn the lessons that our souls came to planet Earth to process. What is the definition of Black love? There are no national standards or traditions for Black love, but within the context of healing, Black love makes sense as a space of connectivity and community. After coming out of a 19-year relationship, I've learned what it means to embrace my sensual desires, the desires of my heart, and to understand the important politics play in relationship to Black love. Politics is the activity or process of making decisions that apply to members of a group or society. Many of my decisions involved the group throughout my tenure in relationships based on my affiliation with team sports. I put the group in the front, and when it seemed like I would try a little bit to focus on me, all chaos would ensue. In my estimation, Black love is about taking care of ourselves as well as others. It's about supporting the Black culture and building communities for the advancement of African Americans. Black love encompasses the unique challenges and beauty experienced within romantic relationships within the Black community. These relationships are influenced by a combination of factors including systemic racism, cultural dynamics, and societal expectations. Despite these challenges, Black love is characterized by resilience, joy, and a profound capacity for love. Let's dive deeper into these aspects. The impact of systemic racism. Systemic racism has historically and continues to impact Black relationships. It manifests in various forms, such as racial discrimination, socioeconomic disparities, and unequal access to resources. These challenges can place additional stress on Black couples, affecting their mental and emotional well-being, financial stability, and overall relationship dynamics. As leaders in the Black ecosystem, Black men who are fraught with unaddressed trauma and issues of low self-esteem create patterns of conflict when it comes to expressing Black love. They want to love but can't get over the buildup of pent-up frustrations that have yet to be released. I'm not offering an excuse for systemic racism as something that keeps Black men from leading the charge of Black love, but its embers still radiate throughout the Black diaspora.